Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events that shape our world. I'm your host, Walter, and we're glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a significant development in the ongoing debate over immigration and national security. The Supreme Court has issued a ruling temporarily blocking the Trump administration from deporting a group of Venezuelan immigrants under the Alien Enemies Act. This 18th-century law gives the president broad authority to deport individuals from an enemy nation during times of war. The case revolves around a group of Venezuelans, allegedly gang members, who were detained in Texas and slated for deportation to El Salvador. However, lawyers from the American Civil Liberties Union and Democracy Forward argued that this would violate a previous Supreme Court decision, which affirmed the immigrants' right to challenge their removal. In a brief ruling filed at 1 a.m. on Saturday, the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to freeze the deportations until further notice. Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas dissented from the decision. This move has sparked a heated debate about the balance between national security and individual rights. To provide some context, the Alien Enemies Act was used during World War II to justify the internment of Japanese Americans. The Trump administration has invoked this law, claiming that Venezuelan gangs pose a threat to national security. While the administration argues that these deportations are necessary to protect the country, critics argue that they violate due process and are an overreach of executive power. The case will now be heard by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court has invited the Solicitor General to respond to the ACU's application. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to consider the complexities and nuances involved. We'll be exploring different perspectives and analyzing the implications of this ruling on our national conversation about immigration and security. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into the latest news from around the world. In our middle segment today, we're looking at a fascinating story that's making headlines in both the United States and the Vatican. It appears that J.D. Vance, a prominent figure in American politics, has met with the Vatican's second-in-command, following some tense exchanges with Pope Francis over the Trump administration's crackdown on migrants. According to reports, Vance had a meeting with the Vatican's Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin, to discuss various issues, including the U.S. government's policies on immigration. Now, it's worth noting that Pope Francis has been an outspoken critic of the Trump administration's approach to migration, and has called for more compassion and understanding towards those seeking refuge in the United States. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, has been a strong supporter of the president's policies, including the construction of a border wall and stricter controls on immigration. The meeting between Vance and Parolin is seen as an attempt to ease tensions between the U.S. government and the Vatican, which have been strained in recent months. While the details of their conversation are not yet clear, it's likely that they discussed ways to find common ground on issues like migration and social justice. It's also worth mentioning that this meeting comes at a time when the Trump administration is facing criticism from various quarters over its handling of foreign policy, including its relationships with key allies and international organizations. The Vatican, as a major player in global diplomacy, is likely to be watching these developments closely. As we consider this story, it's essential to remember that the relationship between the U.S. government and the Vatican is complex and multifaceted. While there may be areas of disagreement, there are also many areas where they share common interests and values. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as more information becomes available. In the meantime, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Do you think the meeting between J.D. Vance and Pietro Parolin is a positive step towards improving relations between the U.S. and the Vatican? Share your comments with us on social media using the hashtag #ConcreteBlock. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're closing out today's show with a significant development in international relations. The United States and Iran have been engaged in historic talks, aiming to revive the nuclear deal that was abandoned by the previous U.S. administration in 2018. These negotiations are crucial, given the rising tensions between the two nations and the potential consequences of a failed agreement. The latest round of talks took place in Italy, where Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Salehi's counterpart, Antonio Tajani, expressed his country's readiness to facilitate further discussions. The U.S. has been represented by its special envoy, who has been traveling extensively to push for an agreement. Russia, another key player in the original nuclear deal, is also playing a crucial role in these negotiations. Analysts suggest that Moscow could potentially take custody of Iran's uranium enriched to 60% purity, which is just a short step away from weapons-grade levels. This development has sparked debate among experts, with some arguing that it could be a viable solution, while others express concerns about the potential risks and implications. It's essential to note that these talks are not without their challenges. Iran has been adamant about its right to enrich uranium, while the U.S. is pushing for a more comprehensive agreement that addresses all aspects of Tehran's nuclear program. The Iranian government is also facing internal pressures, including economic woes and ongoing protests over social issues. As we follow this story, it's crucial to remember that the stakes are high and the outcome will have far-reaching consequences for global security and stability. We'll continue to monitor these developments and provide you with balanced and unbiased updates. In conclusion, the U.S.-Iran talks represent a critical moment in international diplomacy. While there are reasons to be optimistic, there are also significant challenges that need to be addressed. As we navigate this complex landscape, it's essential to stay informed and engaged. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay informed.